Funding for Start the Beat is provided in part by our supporters on Patreon. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Start the Beat with Sykes. My name is Sykes and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out the last episode. If you're one of those people, I hope you enjoyed the conversation and thanks so much for coming back. But for everyone else out there, welcome. Feel free to make yourselves at home, and as always, there's beer, soda, water, coffee, tea, kombucha in the fridge, whatever you like. Cheers to whatever it is that's getting you through the hellish days that we are living in. Actually, things are getting a little better, I think. I don't know. It's so hard to tell. I was actually supposed to film something with some friends earlier today, and one of them got the vid. So we couldn't hang out. It's still around. It's still real. It's still taking out the homies. Jeez Louise. It's a good thing I'm just hanging out at home. And we're recording an episode remotely today, trying to stay safe. But enough about me and enough about all of that stuff that we're tired of talking about. I'm sitting here today with someone who is a new guest to the show. Maybe the first time I've ever had a conversation with this individual, to be completely honest. I know we've been friends on social media for years, but at this point, who hasn't? We've all had thousands of friends for way too long that we don't know. So I'm going to get to know this son of a bitch on the other end of the camera today. Everybody, make some noise for my new friend, Derrick Woods.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
The internet is happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, man.
Cool. I'm glad that we were finally able to do this. I know we've been chatting on and off about doing it. Just wait until we could link up in person and make it happen. But I don't think it's happening anytime soon. It's just, oh boy. We don't got to get into that. I feel like, the whole conversation, anytime I talk to somebody that's not in the music realm that I know, they're like, so what are you doing? What are you going to do? How's it going? And I'm just like, bro, let's talk about anything. Let's macaroni and cheese, chips and salsa, whatever. Let's not bring this up. But how are you just hanging in there, pandemic aside? How's everything going with the band?
Everything's going good. Surprisingly, it's been pretty awesome for us. We just won an award for one of our songs, which is pretty outstanding for, something happening during a pandemic. And otherwise, we've been just doing a lot of rehearsing and getting our show ready for whenever everything lifts and gets back to some kind of normalcy.
Totally. I think that's the best way to approach everything that's going on, is just take the little victories and the time to just keep working on stuff behind the scenes. I feel like, for the most part, most independent underground bands can use a little bit more time in the rehearsal space and a little bit less time on stage. If we're being completely honest, a lot of people kind of rush out there before they're ready, which I totally get. I mean, that's the whole point. We want to be on the stage, but I think everybody having an extra year and some change to kind of fine tune their craft isn't going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, we were going so hard too before this, so it was nice to kind of take a minute to step back and rebalance and, really focus on some new material that we want to get together and add to the show for a fresh show whenever we come back.
Yeah, totally. So the band that we are referring to is a lovely bunch of individuals known as the Derrick Woods Band. Let's get a little bit into the history of this. When did the project start? Why did you start it? Why'd you name a band after yourself? What's going on?
Well, I was in bands for years and years, and as a guitarist and backup vocalist. And I saw you have a Purple Child on here sometimes.
Yeah.
And him and I used to be in a group together back in the day, way back. So following actually that group, I moved to Los Angeles and I was doing things just solo under just Derrick Woods. And at that point I was thinking, really, I'm done with bands. I'm going to just do stuff solo for a while and focus on just my music. And that got old quick, just being the only one on stage. I missed, just having that kind of the group vibe and being able to play together.
Mm-hmm.
So I did find some guys in LA that played with me just under my name to start. And then eventually it kind of evolved into Derrick Wood's band. And we ended up bringing it back to Pennsylvania. And that is when like the core lineup of Derrick Wood's band started. So that was about 9 years ago now.
Super, super cool. So, I find that there's always this, it's really easy to romanticize the idea of just like the solo artist out there hitting the dusty trail, screw everyone else. But I feel like once you've been in a band, especially like a rock band, it's really hard to be on a stage without other people.
It is. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. And I, like I said, I really missed, collaborating with the other musicians in the group. Cause that's the way we do everything. I bring things to the table and everyone puts their 2 cents into the songs and the song grows from there. So without the other ingredients, it's just, it's a different thing.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like, because I recently, for a very long time, I was in a band that was Sykes and the New Violence. And I always felt there was like this intense responsibility because like my name was at the forefront of the project. Like I couldn't it's like I get to collaborate with other people, but I still feel like everything that happens is my fault to some degree, or like, and then in a lot of ways too, I feel like things that other people do, like in the project, maybe they're not getting a proper credit for it. And I'm curious, like how you've like maybe battled with that at all, just being like, oh, that's the Derrick Woods band instead of like, default band name. Like what is your process with still, rolling with that?
That's the thing. In the beginning, I did get a lot of that, like, oh, he's got such an ego, he named the band after himself, and like, what about the other guys? But I mean, really, in the beginning, it was about the songs I was writing. I thought they were pretty strong songs that I wanted to, start featuring myself as a songwriter. And in the beginning too, it was just trying to find the right set of guys and worrying that like, oh, this lineup's going to change. But if it's Derrick Wood's band, then I'm not, sure. I'm leaving. So that name remains. But we have been lucky after a lot of, in the very beginning, it was a little bit of lineup changes and stuff, but just slight lineup changes. But we have been lucky to have pretty consistent set of guys here now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, being in a band for coming up on a decade now and being in the music scene for well over that, we're birds of a feather here. Yeah. Like, what is it about this hustle that still has you in it and like willing to fight the good fight personally? What is it for you?
You know what? It takes a strange breed to stick around. Because there's been many musicians that I've played with through the years, since the start way back, that have stopped playing. They got, different jobs, and maybe they had a family and they couldn't do both. There's so many different situations, but I don't know what it is, man. It's been something that I've always lived and breathed since the very beginning. I've always, this is the only thing that's ever on my mind. So
sure.
I don't see it ever ending.
Yeah. I feel like whenever you're in a project, if it's active, like, I mean, you mentioned, off conversation that we'll get into it. Like you guys have a bunch of new material that you're going to be releasing sometime this year. You just got the award. It seems like you've been relatively consistent with putting out music over the years. And it just seems like the time flies. I feel like the issue is when bands have been a band for a long time, but they're like, ability to just be productive just stagnates over time. And it's like, oh, well, maybe we're only putting out an album every 4 years and we're only playing shows every, it makes it really, really hard. But it seems like you guys have been relatively productive. Is that intentional? Like, have you like ever come across a moment in time where maybe things did slow down and you start to feel that drift? It's real easy for it to like for, 2 weeks off to turn into 2 months to turn into 6 if
and
you're not careful.
I was scared at first about the pandemic happening. I was like, oh no, like what all this momentum we built up through the years, like what's going to happen now? And like, we don't have shows and what happens now. But I mean, really, we have always just tried to stay productive in any way we can. And just searching for new outlets to release our music. Once we record an album, we reinvent the songs a lot of times for live show. Like we'll create a live version of it that sometimes is a little bit more extended. So we're always trying to just reinvent everything and keep it interesting rather than stagnant.
Yeah, I feel like if you really give a shit about what you're doing, the work never ends. And
that's true.
And being an independent band in modern times, it's even crazier if you start getting into like the promotional side of things and all of that. The many hats that we have to wear. Yeah. We already have a couple hats on right now, but plenty more invisible hats that many people don't see. So you come from, you probably were in bands through MySpace and Reverb Nation and all that shit. So like, how have you personally been able to adjust with just like promoting music when like, it seems like every 3 years or so we have to like completely reinvent the way that we market ourselves?
I'm always trying to keep updated with what's the new thing. There's been a few social media sites too that I saw like the people saying like, oh, this is a new one here. So I hurry up and sign up, and I'll sign up the band for it too. And sometimes they, become a little bit of something. Sometimes they don't.
Sure.
and we're out there. I'm just looking for new outlets all the time to keep it going. But yeah, man, MySpace, Pure Volume.
Yeah.
Free.com.
Yeah, it's really easy to romanticize all of that, but I would love to like go back knowing what I know now and like think about like, I wonder if it really was better or if I was just young and I was just excited to be sharing music with anybody,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I did hear about MySpace though, that there's this kid that just started something that is very similar to MySpace.
Oh yeah, the Space Hey.
Yeah.
I made an account yesterday actually.
I did too.
It's a lot of fun. It would be cool if they are able to integrate some sort of a music thing. It seems like it's pretty bare bones though, the way they have it right now. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's still pretty cool. And honestly, I mean, I still have friends that like, come out to shows if I'm out of town that I met on MySpace that'll come still see my dumb bands, which is wild to me. So
I've definitely had a lot that kind of like went over to, through the years.
Yeah.
They just like hung on there. So that's pretty cool.
So even outside of social media, you mentioned that, this Derrick Woods band got started on the other side of the country in LA, which is a place, where dreams happen or don't happen, whatever they say, right? And I'm curious about your perspective and time spent there in reflecting back on it. Like, how much do you think your city matters in terms of like the potential success of a band in 2020, 2021?
Well, being in LA, it was very hard just because there was so many bands trying to do the same thing. But I just tried to get everything I could out of being there. I was working for a record label at the time, so working as a tour manager. And so I was just soaking up everything that I learned there and put it toward my own group. But man, Pittsburgh, it's just, there's no other place like Pittsburgh. I've been all over the country, other countries, and it's just no other place like Pittsburgh. It's, the music scene, the community, everything. So I don't know. I think being in Pittsburgh has been awesome. We're just kind of right now where we're at, especially with the pandemic where a lot of stuff's virtual. We're just, this is our home base, and wherever we need to be virtually, we can do that right now.
Totally. I feel like, you can write a song from anywhere. You can rehearse anywhere. And I feels as though like everything's becoming so much less about just like being in like whatever niche sort of social circle that you have, because now like even when you go out, it's like way harder to make friends in public now than it was 10 years ago, because everybody's just staring at their phones all the time anyways. It's like that's the neighborhood. You just got to get in there, just send somebody in LA a friend request and you'll probably have better luck talking to them than if you ran into them at a club.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. That is a weird thing that's been happening for a while. It's just slow, we're just interacting less as humans, and we're, it's all online. It's crazy.
Yeah. But it's not all negative.
No.
Hence we got this, but it is a little, I don't know. I guess you can poo-poo anything if you think hard enough. So,
yeah, I mean, you can reflect on it, but hey, man, you gotta stay with the times and keep moving forward with it, or get left behind.
Absolutely. So let's dig a bit into what's going on right now currently with the Derrick Woods Band. You have a new album that is on the horizon, I believe.
So exciting. So that's one of the things we did during the quarantine here. We were productive and we wrote a full-length album. We demoed it on our own. Then we were able to go into a local studio and record it all. And then we sent it out for mastering to an engineer in Los Angeles. And he finished it up. And the album's done right now. We're just doing the business side of everything, the finishing touches, and plan to release it this late spring, most likely.
Cool. Yeah, it's whoops, that's the wrong damn screen. There's so much that goes into recording an album, and I say this all the time, but congrats for even just getting it together, because from like writing the songs to recording, like writing everything to learning it to recording it to mulling over it, figuring out if the guitars are panned correctly, if the drums sound like all that stuff. It's so much work, and it's great that you guys got it done. It's awesome. You sound really excited about it, which is super cool. And
we feel really good about it, man. It's some really strong material, I think, and it was a different process too. Normally we're in a room all together and we're working out the parts and pre-production and everything. And this time around, it was a little different, where we demoed everything remotely. And we basically, like I said, hey, here's the basic parts for the song. And everyone recorded their parts remotely, wrote their parts remotely, and we pieced it all together and went into the studio and we had to basically learn the songs as a band after. So like that's kind of, we're at the end of that right now, of having all those songs down and getting ready for shows again.
There's something really cool about writing like that, because I've been doing that a lot as well with my bandmates over the course of the pandemic. And we were even starting to get into doing this prior to the pandemic, because it's like a situation where like, okay, if we're lucky, all of us can get together once a week, be in the same room. Now, there may be other days where a couple of us can get together and this and that, but all 5 of us in the same room once a week if we're lucky. But everybody has computers. Everybody can work on things on their own. And we're just like, fuck it, man. Like, if you got some extra time this night, why not, write some MIDI drums, and then you could send them to somebody and they can put down a guitar part over it. And then the next time you all get together, at least it's not like well, what do we do? And someone's like, well, I got this little idea. It's like, oh no, we have like this whole, 2 minutes of material that we were able to kind of get out there. It's another great positive thing about the internet, and like file sharing is crazy now.
Yeah, it is.
It's the thinking about like, what was it that, remember that band, the Postal Service, and they like, they did when they did that album, it was all like sending stuff back and forth through the mail.
Yeah.
And That's insane to think about, like that idea.
He was going through a really hard time doing that too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know too much of the whole backstory personally. I just remember hearing about that, and at the time, like when that album came out, I was like, oh, that seems cool, because it was definitely before like Dropbox was a thing that we could just like in Google Drive and all this shit.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's there's something kind of like romantic about that concept of like, yeah, you have to wait for it to come in the mail, but also now it's kind of wild to just be like, here's something that I just recorded earlier today, and I could just send it to you through my cell phone.
How crazy.
In like 2 seconds. There you go.
Oh, it's insane, man, how far we've gone.
And in terms of releasing albums, aside from recording the ding dong thing and you get it all done and ready to go, now it's like, well, when are we gonna release it? How early in advance are we going to get it uploaded so we could submit for playlists and yada yada da 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 da, all of that stuff? It's like you're probably in the middle of all of that right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. It's weird because even CDs are like, I mean, it's a thing that like you have to have, but at the same time, they're kind of going away. So
it's so weird because, you know, I have a couple different bands, and my metal band can sell the hell out of CDs.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, our target demo is like people our age and older, which are all like, you know, mid 30s and up. People that still buy CDs. But then like my hip hop stuff, I have like a slightly younger demographic that listens to that, and none of them fucking want CDs at all. Yeah. It's such a weird like juxtaposition. I remember talking with I had Chris from Punchline on the show a couple months ago.
Chris is a great guy.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I think when they were doing shows, maybe with like the Gin Blossoms or somebody. Yeah, he was talking about how they never sold CDs, and I was like, "Well, how many CDs did you sell at those Gin Blossom shows?" And he was like, "Actually, now that you bring it up, a lot." I was like, "Yeah, 'cause you're playing to an older demographic." Yeah. So I imagine
he actually did a bunch of our lyric music videos.
Oh, super cool
for our band. Yeah,
small city.
Yeah.
You know, I find that, you know, I imagine the type of music that you do that's like more Americana, rock based, accessible. You know, there are a lot more opportunities for you to have like a pretty diverse and wide array of like people that listen to your music. Like, what have you noticed, you know, back before the pandemic, like what your sort of crowd was looking like? Was it like a common crowd, or was it always like a hodgepodge of people?
It's kind of a mix. You know, we always wanted to appeal to, you know, wide range of different ages and types of people. That's kind of, you know, like sort of the way that, say, like Tom Petty was. You know, a lot of different types of people like Tom Petty. Yeah, I mean, you might be into rap, hip hop, you might be into country music.
Yeah.
But, you know, so many people like Tom Petty. And there's a lot of artists that are kind of like that. And that's what we've always aimed for. And then we kind of just fell into the Americana genre.
Sure.
So we've always tried to appeal to a large audience and kind of have that timeless sound.
Totally. You know what's really interesting when you think about like rock and roll as a whole is not very old. Yeah, it's a pretty young genre. And when like a lot of the greats, you know, the people that we call the greats, like, you know, whatever name you want to throw out there, when a lot of them were doing their thing, there was no such thing really as like demographics in terms of who listens to music. There was no old people to listen to that music yet because it was just so fresh for everybody. So now it's really weird thinking about like, oh, this is something that could appeal to somebody that's in their 60s or their 70s or in their teens or their 20s. And like, you know, whenever Tom Petty was first putting out stuff, I don't think it was like, it was a lot more isolated. And I wonder like if that like helped in a weird way with like not worrying so much about like, who is this music going to appeal to? And instead you just write the music for it to be whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. I definitely think it was different for sure. There's a lot of different genres now, and even thinking back to like say like Woodstock, we look back now and they're like jam bands and things like that, but they just went by pop, that was pop music, So it wasn't. There's so many subgenres now, and it's crazy, man.
Yeah, with your personal music journey, have you ever dove into working with any other styles of music? Maybe not necessarily for like the air quote Derrick Woods band, but just for fun.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm into pretty much every genre, different style of music, and I've always been interested in doing that. Just being in, writing kind of different kinds of songs. And some of the other members of Derrick Woods band as well, like they jump around different stuff, jazz, and they've done accompanying hip hop artists and different things. So it's we're always interested in doing different stuff like that. I think that's cool.
I'm curious, over your journey as a singer songwriter, is there anything that maybe in like the past decade of your life, any styles of music or artists that maybe you just did not give a shit about when you were younger, but you kind of like grew into having some sort of an appreciation for them through like just like your time spent as a singer songwriter and starting to like engage and take in music in a different way?
I mean, there's so many singer songwriters that more I listen to them, I'm like, wow, they're so good. But yeah, there's a lot of bands, in the beginning I was like, but more I became a songwriter and writing songs really opened up a lot about those songs and bands. Yeah, there are a lot of groups.
And then, on the flip, is there anything that maybe, you thought was like the bee's fucking knees when you were like a teenager, but now looking back on it, you're like, holy smokes. Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, back when I was a teenager, a lot of like pop punk bands and stuff like that. And
sure.
Like, punk rock bands and looking back now, it's some of them I was like, wow, they're amazing. Now it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's an
some of those bands, they still stick out to me, but
sure, a good song's a good song, but I feel like in order to like, it's very difficult, I feel like, to age gracefully, especially in like the pop punk genre, only because it's such a like unapologetically adolescent thing. That's like where the energy comes from. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's just it has like a youthful energy to it. And it's like, if you're going to age and keep continuing to make this music, it's like, you have to find a way to do it gracefully and maybe still like mature with the sound, I think like Punchline's a band that was able to do it, to bring them up again.
Absolutely. They were. Yeah.
But, there are other bands that maybe haven't aged so gracefully, but it's very interesting just figuring out, like, I don't know, it's just interesting growing as a musician, because like the type of music that you listen to starts to change, and what you appreciate and what you don't appreciate starts to change. And it starts to really reflect in like what you want to do as an artist. And if you're like somebody like me or you who are like, we put music out under our name, right? It's not just like this ambiguous thing. It's like, it goes back to that responsibility I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation. Cause it's like, I have a responsibility, maybe to people that listen to my music to like deliver things that they're coming to expect, but I also want to push the boundaries. But how far do you push them with like, it's like that tightrope between like,
well, it's crazy too, man. Yeah. Like, going by your name, like you evolve as a person. So, it's, of course your music's going to evolve. I feel bad, honestly, for the kind of people that are stuck in a genre, and if they do something a little bit different, their fans aren't open to that. That isn't, you have to evolve. That's just human nature.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting to see, somebody like a Machine Gun Kelly, speaking of pop punk, right? Like, deciding to embrace this entirely different side of himself, but actually managed to like do it very successfully, which was really cool.
I mean, I guess they're saying he's bringing it back, you know? So
yeah, I mean, well, it's like for one, you got like Travis Barker on your team, who is like, the godfather of pop punk basically, and genre crossing, because he was doing all that like hip hop crossover stuff for over the past, like since the MySpace days, you know what I mean?
Seriously.
You know, he's definitely the right person to bring on board for that. And the thing too with those songs is like, you know, I don't really give a shit about any of those songs. Like, I'm not going to listen to them, but I can listen to a song and be like, that's a damn good song. And they're damn good songs. Like, they're really well written, fun, radio friendly, squeaky clean pop punk nonsense, but it's like good. And I you know, my friend Indigo, who I do like a synth project with, she showed it to me and I was like, I hate this, but also I understand why you like it and why everybody else does. Like, it's just not, I am not the target demo here for this, but it's good. It's really good.
I'm a mix on it. I you know, like there's some songs I do like on it, but I had to sit down and listen to the whole thing to hear the ones that I did like. Because I'm still one of those guys that sit down and listen to the full album front to back. So there were some songs on that new album that I liked, but I did have to dive in and kind of listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear. I mean, outside of the Machine Gun Kelly stuff, because things recycle. You know, every decade or two, you get those. That stuff will happen, but also like there's a lot of things that are in like the more modern, I guess what people were considering hip hop or rap or R&B these days. And like, there's a lot of really weird stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe this is popular. Not because I don't like it. Yeah. It's just really strange to me. Like a Billie Eilish blows my mind that she is as big as she is. Not because I don't think the music is bad. It's just like, this is like very almost unaccessible. Like, how did it like, what crossed over on this? It's so like anti-pop in a lot of ways, but also incredibly catchy. It's just really strange that was the money and the power and all of these things that were like, you know, behind the scenes that really helped somebody get to that level, because talent only gets you so far. Decided like, well, we're gonna roll the dice on Billie Eilish. I think it's cool. I'm glad that they did. That's somebody.
And she won so many awards too.
Yeah, that's somebody that I'm really excited to see like grow as an artist. Like her and her brother, who she produces all that stuff with. Yeah, seeing the two of them like over the next decade, I think is going to be a lot of fun and really interesting, because like you could tell that like they're still kind of figuring it out. So it's going to be really. Yeah, it's going to be.
You know what? I watched an interview with her brother too, which was really cool. Just seeing how, because they do a lot of stuff, I guess, you know, from their own studio.
Yeah.
And just seeing how they created some of the beats and stuff like that. They you know, household items, and they recorded a traffic, you know, like.
Yeah. In Australia.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, that I think that's cool, you know.
Yeah. But I think that it's really cool that all that stuff exists, and I wish that like more people would see those videos, because it like makes me appreciate everything that's going on so much more. It's like this unrealistically human element to it. It's like, this wasn't like some manufactured in a studio lab sort of thing. It's like, no, it's like, these are a couple of music dorks just like me and you and anybody else that have been making weird songs in their bedroom for like the past decade. Yeah. And like, you know, now they've figured it out, and it's like, okay, sure. Like maybe she's only, you know, 19, 20, however old she is, but her and her brother have been doing stuff since they were like literal children.
I know. That's
it's like, what have you been doing for the past 10 years? You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to naysay it, but like they put in a lot of work, and I think it's really cool. So I'm excited to see what's going on, you know, in the future for them. And just the fact that like an album that was recorded in a bedroom with somebody sitting on a bed and no isolation or none of this fancy shit. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's wild that technology is at that point where you can record a really fucking good album and you don't need like all of the fancy shit.
I know it's I don't know, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of, it's like, wow, that is, I think, a good thing for music, you know?
I think it's awesome. In a lot of ways, it makes it hard because there's a lot more. We'll say the pond's a little bit denser these days. You know,
Yeah.
I remember back around like when MySpace was happening, like I had been playing in bands for a little bit, and I don't know again if this was me just not being as aware of my surroundings, but it felt like there wasn't as many people in bands back in like the mid 2000s as there is now. Like in high school, like there was one band in my high school.
Oh yeah, man. I think you're right.
But like now I remember like, you know, like a few years like after I had graduated and things like that. And I'm playing shows. Now I'm playing shows with like all of these teenagers that go to the same high school that I went to. And I'm like, how is there so many bands now when there was fucking nothing when I was your age? It's cool, but it's like, what happened to make this more accessible? I don't
know. I don't know, because it was a couple years ago. I was like, where are these bands playing? Because we used to book like, like fire halls and community centers whenever we were kids, you know? So it's like, where are they playing? But I mean, really, there has been tons of bands popping up now, and that's great. You know, younger kids are still at it. So that's awesome.
It's crucial. You know, youth drives the culture, and I'm always excited to see younger bands, especially like younger bands that are excited to be on stage and playing, even if they're not great. If they got like a good energy, it's like they'll figure it out. You got to give them opportunities to actually play, fuck up a little bit, as long as they're cool. I'm always happy to like have younger bands opening up for us on shows and things like that. And also, it's just like, because like that's the thing. It's like, I think it also helps me keep that sort of like youthful energy. Like you see a band like that play that's just figuring it out, and you remember what it was like. You know, you spend all of your time just playing with other grumps, you know, then it's going to make it a lot more miserable to be out and about and playing shows.
Absolutely. I was hosting a weekly thing for a while whenever I wasn't on the road and out of town. And it was just, you know, bringing in some live music and opening up the stage. And I would I would have a whole light set up and sound. And we'd have a lot of young talent coming in. And it was amazing to see some of these people. Just, you know, because there was a lot of them that, you know, their parents would bring them sometimes. And they would tell me, thank you so much for giving them an outlet to play, because this is, you know, they don't have any other places to play, you know? And so it's definitely cool to see that younger age group blossoming, growing.
In terms of, you know, scenes, whenever I guess it may have been really strange, because whenever you had left your band from the early 2010s, and that band, you left, or it ended, or whatever happened, and then you went to LA, and then you started doing solo stuff. So like it was like probably a major scene change, not only for like maybe the kind of music that you were trying to pursue, but also geographically. I'm curious like what it was like maybe the first time operating in a different music scene, in terms of like finding people and seeing like the attitudes of different people. But I imagine it's probably hard to answer it in the way that I'm thinking about it, because it was also a different city and not just like a different demographic.
It was starting from ground zero, basically, and both musically and trying to find people that style of music interested, and just building the fan base from ground zero. But then, you know, there were some people that followed me from, you know, past groups, and, you know, that knew my music. But you know, it was definitely a change, and it's crazy through the years how everything's evolved, and the fans that have followed us since the very start of Derrick Wood's band, and they got to see how the band definitely changed through all the years.
I have a buddy who played in a post-hardcore band for a long time here. And, you know, we played a lot of shows together, the whole fire hall, banquet hall, small club sort of thing, right? And it was always with like other hardcore bands and metal bands and things like that. And he stopped playing for a couple years, and then he started doing more singer-songwritery solo stuff and started going out and doing like open mic nights and stuff. And I remember talking with him about it, and I was like, so like, what's it been like for you? You know, like going out and playing again. And the thing that he said to me was so funny. He was like, I didn't know that there was nice people in the music scene. It was like him introducing himself, like getting into like a completely different world, opened up this whole thing where it was like, yeah, well, now you're actually playing, like you're going to these open mic nights and you're meeting other musicians who are actually passionate, want to be there, listen to other people's music and network and do all of that cool stuff. When you're playing in, you know, metal bands as a teenager, it's like everyone's there to kind of watch their friends or hang out and, you know, go across the street and get pizza and all that dumb shit. It's not like it's a community, but it's a different kind of thing. It's not so much about like, it's a bad time to actually give a shit about like your art. You know, because like that's not what anybody's there. Nobody's there for like your passion as a musician. Everybody just kind of wants to be a part of this thing that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's different to have that background too. You know, like coming from a different scene too. You know, and playing in different types of bands. Mm-hmm. It's cool to have that. You know, that's all that builds what you are now.
You know, what's really funny is like even when I think about it. In my days when I was just doing like solo rap stuff, it would be like me and an iPod and that's it before I had a band. You know, I started out naturally just playing rap shows because that's what I thought made sense. Yeah. And then I ended up playing like a metal hardcore show, just opening up because I was friends with some of the other people that were playing. And it ended up being like the best experience for me. But it's funny because like that experience, that was the same crowd that my other friend had a bad experience in. So it's like how different things work for different people, you know? Just like at the time, the underground hip hop community just like did not, I just don't think, I was just way too weird, you know, like it's always kind of weird being like the white kid for some reason. Even, I mean, it's so strange to me because like has there ever been a time that there wasn't white rappers? Not really. Like, you know, if you really go back like to maybe in like you could say in the 80s, 90s, it could have been a little odd. But now for how long hip hop has been a genre, you know, the Beastie Boys have been in it since pretty much the beginning. Yeah. But all that being said, there's still always kind of like the trope of, you know, the white kid rapping. And then at the time I had like wacky hair and lip piercings and, you know, skinny jeans and some heavy metal t-shirt, like, you know, just very much like, you know, I had that fuck you energy at the time. Yeah. I think like now in hindsight, I would have probably tried to, not necessarily like tone down myself, but I would have been thinking more about like, oh, like, being a part of the crowd, playing to the demographic. And because I think more about that stuff now as like an older, more seasoned entertainer, I suppose. I'm always thinking about I think about that stuff a lot, even though there's, you know, that young punk in me wants to be like, it doesn't fucking matter what the fuck you're wearing. And I'm like, nah, people are going to see a show, and whether they think about it or not, like subconsciously, like if you look like shit on stage, it's gonna come off in a weird way to the people that are watching you, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, that's true. True, man. I know in the beginning also, going back to whenever I was just starting to do solo stuff, I was working for a label and it was a metal label. So like my whole circle at that time was, you know, like a lot of the metal crowd. It was a label called Century Media Records. Yeah. And so like my whole crowd was all, you know, a lot of the metal. So I was kind of finding myself in that time because I wasn't writing metal music, you know. So it was definitely interesting to kind of cross promote. But, you know, across the genres. Crazy.
When you were working in that in that time frame, did you find like, and were you into any of the music, or were you really like outside of yourself, just kind of like, I don't understand what the fuck's going on here, but hey, job's a job. Let's make it work.
It was a little bit of a mix of both. It kind of threw me back to, like whenever I was like way younger, being more into that style of music. Like way back, like screamo bands and stuff like that. And it was kind of just like threw me back into that time. Of course, there were some that was just like, I'm not really into that as much, but it was a bit of a mix. A little bit of a mix. It was cool I fell into that genre for a while, and I saw myself listening to that kind of music a lot more.
Yeah. In terms of, the future now, let's get back to where we are currently. We don't know exactly when this album is going to be coming out, but it'll come out at some point in time, and there'll be all of these things that you're going to be doing. What is like the one thing that you're hoping to accomplish with the band this year, if there's like one main goal at all?
Well, we're hoping, we're trying to make our plans right now to get back out there playing a lot more, and getting this album out there. We're hoping, everything with the world is a little bit better this year, and we're going to do some outdoor shows, and we do have a couple of theater shows planned. And we started doing some drive-in shows right before everything kind of happened, like really bad, where everything was really shut down. So trying to get back into that as well. And we'll have some new music videos out, and we just hope to get the travel a little bit more again back on the road, and just push this new music out there and share it with everyone.
Yeah, I think that, I feel I'm really happy for the people such as you and other like genre-ish styled bands, because there's a lot more opportunity for you guys right now versus like the death metal bands. It's, we actually got somebody that has like a restaurant somewhere is trying to do some sort of a metal thing, and I was like, this seems cool, and I'm sure that there's a demographic for like metalheads that just want to see some metal, and they'll probably want to sit down and, what do you eat like a burger or ribs when you listen to metal, right? I don't know like what the metal food is. But like, I cannot for the life of me, like, imagine playing music that intense in that sort of an environment. Like, it just seems so absurd to me personally, but I also like don't know what the space looks like. I was like, maybe if we can go check it out, get a feel for the room, see what it looks like. Cause in my head, I have like the worst possible scenario, the picture that's painted in my head, but a lot more of like the casual rock, more accessible pop focused things. It's like, you've probably already played plenty of shows to a room full of people just sitting down and chilling prior to the pandemic. So it's probably no fucking different.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely feel bad for, there's certain genres that aren't able to kind of, make it through this. So
yeah, you like need the nightclub, you need there's definitely like some bootleg underground, don't tell anybody basement things that are happening. And like, I as much as I'm like my that young don't give a fuck punk attitude, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm really glad that that's happening, but I'm like, I'm not fucking going. I don't want to be a part of that at all. It just seems like the worst idea for me personally, but I guess hey, knock your socks off, whatever, It's so hard. I don't know like what the right or the wrong thing is to do. Just gotta wait till it feels right for me, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what everyone's sort of going by at this point.
Yeah, and I feel like and I feel like no matter what, whoever like the first bands to actually start going out and playing shows again is, like, they're gonna get shit for it in some way, and it's like they're gonna have to be like the the ones that I mean, this is like a very, I'm not trying to bring religion into it, but like, the one person that the band that gets crucified in one way or another so everybody else can start playing shows again. Like it's like, who's going to do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have
I know I want to see the Flaming Lips though. Right now they have everyone's in the bubbles.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That just seems like some shit they would have done anyways.
I know it is.
Yeah, it's so an interesting time. I think that if you are able to be in a position where you can go with the flow and not take yourself too seriously, I think you can find a way to make it through this. Like I've seen like some like a couple bands that I'm friends with that are like more extreme heavy bands starting to do like real goofy stuff on Twitch that's like way out of character for them, but it's like,
oh really?
But like it makes sense. Like they're still engaging an audience. They're kind of dropping their guard a bit, like dropping the tough guy shit and just kind of like, well, we have nothing else to do. Let's have some fun. It's nice to see that, like having some people lighten up a bit.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely been different times to try to keep your audience engaged, and there's in shows, you got to figure out what to do next.
Yeah. I think that the live stream thing, I think, is pretty dead at this point. Yeah. Did you do any of that?
In the very, very beginning. But and mostly just solo stuff. The sound quality for so many of them were just horrible.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm just over this. We did do a couple just recently, some more like professional ones that were, on a real stage, and everything is pro, but I'm talking about like, that you scroll through your Facebook newsfeed and it's from a cell phone, it's.
Yeah. I mean,
old quick.
Yeah. It was very, very, very exhausting very quickly. And it's like, it's funny because my metal band now, it's like we have like all of the resources that we need to do a really good live stream.
Yeah.
And I was like, a couple months ago, I was like, maybe we should do this. And now I'm like, I feel like I don't want to do this at all. Even if we can't play a show, I don't know if it's worth it or not. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. I don't know. I got to think more about it. I also like have a bad habit of always thinking like worst case scenario type of things. Got to think about like, I mean, it's like maybe just put it out there. And if people actually want to see it, maybe it's just kind of like, well, suck it up, Buttercup. Your fans actually give a shit. So do it for them. Yeah,
that's true.
I think that it's a little bit difficult for me too, because like I technically I'm in 3 bands. So like, 2 of those projects have already released new albums in the pandemic. And now I'm going to be releasing a 3rd one. And it's like that cycle, it's just so exhausting because I have to be, band dad for all of the projects in a lot of ways. So I'm the one that's uploading everything and getting everything
we're
already.
It's
just like
I have the same kind of thing. I'm like I'm the guy that wears a lot of hats, and I handle a lot of like the management and booking and everything. And I have 3 groups as well. Aside from Derrick Wood's band, I perform with my dad.
Oh yeah. You had mentioned that.
And I perform with my wife as a more like a stripped down acoustic folky type stuff. So it's it's definitely crazy doing all the different projects.
Yeah. Again, why do we do this to ourselves? Well, that's cool that, I mean, you're playing with your wife, so that's cool. You at least have support there, I would imagine.
Yeah. I lucked out.
Yeah, that's huge. I feel that, without the support of people like that doing what we do is probably impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely lucked out with that one.
With the future of Derrick Woods in general, where do you see yourself in 36 years.
Wow. Well, I have to be, I don't know. It's hard to say, but recognized for my songwriting, and I hope to, perfect that craft more to where it maybe should be recognized, and just keep writing some better songs than the last one,
Mm-hmm.
and just I'm sure in 30 years I'm going to be still like, oh, I want to do this better, I want to do, I want to achieve this, so I'm sure I'm never going to settle for anything. But my wife and I were actually just joking about this because we just finally won this award, and that was a pretty big accomplishment for us. And she was laughing because she was like, oh, you'd win a Grammy and you'd still be complaining that, you only won a Grammy for one song.
Sure.
You have a one-hit wonder, and, it's like, only got to have another hit. So I'm sure I'll still be driving it ahead in 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to. I think that it's an interesting thing because you don't want to be in a position where you can't take the time to stop and smell the roses, right?
Yeah.
But also without that drive, it's like, what is going to encourage you to keep going and push yourself and challenge yourself to do new outside of the box things if you don't have that voice kind of beating yourself up in the back of your head?
Yeah. And I do think, with the pandemic and having to stop playing shows, and we were just full force ahead for so long, for years. And, doing 5 shows every week, 4 or 5 shows every single week. And then just, everything else that's involved with that. It was really nice to just stop and like kind of rebalance, step back and be like, hey, we have done, a lot and accomplished a lot. And what are we going to focus on next? It has been a really cool time to stop and smell the roses a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
We can. Cool.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So you'll have to keep me, God damn it, wrong screen. You'll have to keep me in the loop, keep everybody in the loop with whenever you're going to be finally releasing this. I imagine you'll probably have like a single or a video or something.
Yes, we will. We're kind of impatiently waiting right now. We're really excited to get this new music out there, and we will have a video and a couple of them. So
before we wrap the whole thing up, where can people find the Derrick Woods Band? I imagine it's not a hard thing to find.
Yeah, you can find us honestly on almost any social media you have. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We have our music videos on YouTube. Our latest video that just won an award was Unforgiving Tree, and that's on YouTube. We have the Question music video on there, and then we have some older ones as well. We're on Facebook. We're on DerrickWoodsBand.com. We're on Instagram. Yeah, we're everywhere.
Super cool. So, before we get out of here, is there anything else you would like to say as we round the station? Choo choo.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yo, you're super welcome.
It's good to hang out, man.
Totally. I'm glad we finally got to do this. Apologies that you're not sitting here right next to me, but we'll make that happen. We'll definitely,
absolutely.
We'll definitely make that happen. 1000%. I'm, whenever it's okay to be around people again, I'm going to be moving this show out of my house and back into a studio space that's going to be big enough to accommodate live bands.
Oh, nice, man.
I've been planning on kind of doing that, like podcast / VH1 storyteller / NPR Tiny Desk, sort of all that together. Like, I want to be able to like sit down, have them play songs, talk about bullshit in between, do all that. So
nice. That sounds awesome.
I have all this stuff. I got all the ding dong stuff sitting in my basement. I just need things to lift, and then we can make it happen. So definitely get you in for that whenever the time is appropriate. So I'm going to do my outro, and then we're just going to get the hell out of here. Alrighty. And that is all, folks. Thanks so much for being here. One more time. Derrick Woods, make some noise. Woo! I'll be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sykes. Start the beat 2020. Woo woo! Thanks for listening. And we are done, my friend. That is a podcast. We did it. We made it happen. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
Cool, man. Just gonna fade this out. And that is it.